Our next and final speaker. If time permits, I'm going to go over just pointing you to the book budget plan in this book, okay? Because in order to be entrepreneurs, you got to have a book business plan. So we'll at least show you one slide and show you what page on this book and where to get it. We are delighted today to be able to introduce our next speaker, who is coming up to the front. And I will say he is our first speaker under 25. Yes. So he's coming with wisdom and knowledge and experience under 25 to impart. I believe you can learn from the young, you can learn from the in-between, and you can learn from the old, if you're open. So Sir Virgil Thornton, I've given him a title after spending a few days with he and his mom. He's such a gentleman. He is a writer, author, guest poet, and filmmaker. Virgil Thornton II has loved reading and writing since middle school. And some of his works include Blades of Trinity series, the Fables of Four series, and a collection of miscellaneous poetry and visual media projects. He is currently working on a short film and independently developed video games. What? And some of his favorite shows and books include One Piece, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Hunter X, Hunter, the Percy Jackson series, Akata, and anything from Neil Gaiman. He makes it his goal to listen to at least 2 books a month and to write something, anything, at least once a week. Give it up for Sir Virgil Thornton.
Thank you very much.
That's amazing.
Percy Jackson series, we need to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so I'll try to blaze through this and make this fun for you all. Last presentation. So yes, Virgil, I'm the owner of Weird Disciple Publishing, author of quite a few different things, but we're going to jump right into this. I know that all of you are interested in the publishing aspect of things, so we'll try to spin this presentation to look at that. So you might be looking at this Ouroboros. You might have seen this imagery before. I'm not going to be really talking about like the cycle of creation and destruction or anything like that. I just like the imagery of like the snake eating its tail. It's kind of consuming itself. And that's something I want to focus on today, is making content you want to consume. Now, we go with audience reactions, right? Publishers want audiences to react positively, right? You know, if you make a podcast, you want people to really be into it. You write a book, you want people to really be invested. You make a movie, you want people to watch it and really be in there. What you don't want is, you know, people don't want to read, people aren't bored with watching, and the ever-dreaded people on their phones, right? So you want to capture their attention, but you're your first audience member is you. So if you aren't feeling it, if you don't want to consume it, then why would anyone else? So we're going to go through sort of how to help that happen, how you can make something that you would like to consume. Now, I like to make a lot of fiction personally, but you can still apply this to whatever you make. So there are 3 key things that you can do to build a stronger foundation, and we're gonna, first of all, we're gonna try and blaze through these because I think I made a few more slides than time allows, but also we sort of try to apply these 3 concepts to different areas. Especially in order to make content you want to consume, you have to consume content. You have to read books, listen to podcasts, watch movies that you enjoy, so you know what you enjoy. You have to redirect your programming. So I put a fire sort of image here because this one can be a little dangerous. We talked about it a bit before. Social media can kind of sort of drag you into a spiral, but you can also spin it and use it to work for you, because social media is always analyzing your moves while you're using their platform. If you start using their platform to educate yourself, they just want you on there longer, so they'll give you more and more educational things. And then, of course, practice regularly, just like with anything that you're good at. I mean, you may have a talent, but you practice and make it better, whether it's sports, whether it's hobbies, and writing is the same way. Practice regularly. Writing is super easy to do. You could, if this presentation isn't very interesting, you could do it now if you wanted to. So let's go into 3 different things. So first we'll go into books, how to apply these principles to books. And I'll give you some examples from Blades of, kind of got cut off a little bit. Blades of Trinity is the book series that I started. These are some characters from it. We'll talk about them in a bit. This is, I put a little creation stats block for each of these 3 different things, books, podcast, and movie, just so that if you're getting into it, you can sort of get a feel of what to look out for in terms of costs and things. So books are the most kind of weird. In terms of money costs, to literally write a book, it's pretty much free. You could just sit down, do it. You could type it at the library if you don't have Word at your house, something like that. Pretty easy to put together. The complexity comes with, first, the time cost, because those of us that have written a book know it gets a little tough in the middle parts and in the end parts, and definitely with the editing. When your editor comes back with pages and pages of red, it's like, oh, that's rough. And then of course copywriting and publishing routes with the traditional versus self-publishing. We can get into the weeds and the Q&A, but those are probably the most interesting parts. But everything else is pretty low elements. It's pretty doable by yourself and an editor, and then that popularity right there. Well, the books were really, really popular, about 10 years ago. Now they're still popular, but compared to like movies and shows and TikTok, it's kind of takes a back seat. So strategies to make a book that you want to consume. Main strategy, write a story that's unique. So you've heard the saying, there's nothing new under the sun. I use this a lot in my fiction, but you can use it in whatever genre. When you're writing like a monster or a setting or something, you're probably not going to come up with a brand new monster. Like you'll come up with something and people will be like, oh, that's just this. I'm like, okay, well, so you're probably not going to come up with something new. But you can make new sequences. You can be like, oh, it's a monster, but maybe the monster, has a family that they're taking care of and they want to go on a vacation. But you can make up new sequences and things. And then in order to use those 3 strategies that we were talking about earlier to improve your foundations, of course there's consuming. You can read books that you enjoy, especially in your genre. You can sort of, there's like, in TikTok, if there's a TikTok that's associated with anything, they just put the name of that thing in front of it. So there's like book talk if you want to go on TikTok and learn about books and things like that, or YouTube or Instagram, anything of that nature. And then practice with books. Of the 3 things, books is the easiest. Just write short pieces in random prompts weekly. Join a writer's group, like a writer's workshop if you can. That has helped me tremendously in just writing each week and improving my writing techniques. And then some examples from my book series. So we got Crescent of Darkness, the first one on the left, and then Tales of Augury, second one on the right. The Crescent of Darkness, so I knew I've always wanted to read something literally sci-fi fantasy. So sci-fi is you're taking aliens and technology, and fantasy you're taking magic and stuff and put them together. So that's what I made. And then some of you may have heard the story of, I released it in high school. I improved in my writing since high school, so it wasn't something that I wanted to read, and so I made it better into something that I did want to read. And then book 2, going through it. This one, my editor was pretty harsh on, but I appreciate her for that. So this says, make challenge spirits more unique. I had this gentleman over here is named Daiki. He goes on a quest and fights these challenge spirits. And originally I just had it, goes to a shrine, spirit pops up, he fights it, he keeps going. And it happened 7 times. And my editor was like, that's really boring. Like, when he gets to a shrine, I know what's gonna happen. The spirit's gonna pop up, he's gonna fight it. It's like, okay, how can we make it different? So maybe we'll have a spirit come up that's friendly, that tries to talk with him. Maybe we'll have a spirit that's way stronger than him, or maybe one that's way weaker. And I made it so that there's a certain point where nobody has ever seen the rest of them. So he's the first one to even encounter the next one, so he doesn't have anything to prepare with. So that kind of made it more interesting to write and read. And then letting heroes grapple with failure. The 3rd protagonist of the series is not on the screen, but in that book, he experiences a big failure early on in the book. And instead of him just being like, okay, this is what I need to do to fix it, he goes on a journey to fix it, but it's more so focusing in on how that failure is messing with his mindset and his spirituality and self-confidence. So that was something that was, again, fun to write, fun to read. Next, we'll move on to a podcast. So this is a good in-between, like a book and a movie. This podcast is kind of like an audiobook plus. So instead of just hearing voices, it's really fun. I'll do different voices for different characters. I'll invite in some of my friends to do like the guest voices, and then we'll have music, sound effects, and even sort of background images and pictures. Is what I was going to talk to you about, the legality. But we bring it all together into a fun production, which is known as Fables of War. It's based on Dungeons and Dragons. And so podcast creation, it's super duper simple to publish as opposed to with writing. We can just make the podcast and put it up wherever, YouTube, Apple, anywhere. Making it is sort of medium. You can kind of just, if you want to, slap on a microphone, get your friends in, chat about whatever, hit stop, and then upload it just straight up. So it doesn't have to be super difficult. And it is very popular nowadays. It's spiked in popularity recently. So if you're looking for something that's like going to reach a lot of people for a smaller bit of effort, you might want to look into a podcast. And their medium elements, you're going to need more than just yourself and an editor for this. So podcast strategies to make a podcast you would want to listen to. Immerse your audience. You want to make them feel like they're there with the speakers. It's just a normal podcast where it's you and your buddies talking about a topic. You want to, make sure you guys talk like how you talk. You don't want to be like, oh yes, I think that this. No, you want to be like, yeah, what do you think about this? That sort of thing. And then if you do something like Fables of War, where it's more of like an immersive, almost radio show, you want to, the sound effects, have the music, all that kind of stuff. In order to improve, listen to podcasts, that's the consumption part. Engage in online communities and like review communities, fan communities. That way you can actually generate some cool ideas from there, and also have some promotion there as well. And then practicing, this one's a little harder than books. You can't just sit down and crank out an episode in like traffic or something like that. Well, I guess you couldn't do that with a book, but voice training helps you there. And then outreach, telling people about it, and then posting episodes. This doesn't have to be as serious as a book, because you can make, some podcasts go on for hundreds of episodes. You can make a ton. So practicing that is pretty straightforward. So my podcast, these are some of my characters. All of these are characters that I've played in a D&D setting before. But this is how I've made some of my episodes of my podcast, things that I want to listen to. So over here, I think this is episode 3, there was a specific scene where these 3 gentlemen in the back venture into a witch's hut, and it's like supposed to be spooky and scary. And instead of them just going in and having me doing those 3 voices and then my friend doing the witch's voice, I have like the cauldron brewing in the back and bubbling and like the spooky music and stuff. And it sets the mood, it puts you in there. And also characters stutter and grunt in reaction, so like they might hear something and be like, oh, I beg your pardon, stuff like that. Instead of just going, what did you say? Like that. So putting some emphasis in there. And then over here, episode 2. With this episode, I lean into the sort of guile and intrigue. This episode, these characters are a little more, these ones are sort of like just straightforward. These ones are very smart, very crafty, like to think their way around problems, so I really hammed it up with the villain. It was an intellectual villain, so everybody was trying to outwit one another. You could hear it in their voice sometimes. And then I'd like to emphasize sort of the aesthetic that I was going for. Came out in October, so I was sort of trying to boost that sort of fall feeling with, they go to a bakery and a flower shop, and I describe all of the nice autumnal flowers and things like that. Just, again, painting the scene. And then finally, the movie. Now Boarding. It is my first movie project with, thank you. It actually features everyone from, well, not everyone, but everybody in the movie is in my writer's workshop. We actually wrote the script together, and I was the producer, and everybody else, had different roles and things. It's supposed to be a horror short film. about a haunted metro.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Metro, right?
yeah. And so, movies are definitely mixed bag compared to books and podcasts. They're very expensive to make. You'll need the equipment, you will need to compensate the staff in some way. You don't have to, I mean, everybody was volunteers here, but you might pick up the tab at dinner or something, just to kind of show that you're in charge, but also to compensate them for their time and everything, because shoots take a very long time to do. And then time cost, very high. Well, first of all, when you write a movie script with a group of nothing but writers, the revisions get pretty ridiculous. But also scheduling, trying to get everybody's schedule together is crazy. And then publishing it depends on what you're going for. If you're just going for, it's an independent film, you just put it on YouTube, and well, first you have to submit it to any competitions you want it to be in. And then, yeah, make sure you're legally squared away.
Okay.
But then you can just plop it on YouTube. If you want it to be a bigger thing, then you might have to go through some different avenues. And then popularity, people like movies, people may or may not like independent films, so it's medium popular. And then elements, this is going to be by far the most elements. You need, your producer, your director, cinematographer, maybe your gaffer and lighting person, and then all of your actors. And then, if you're going really big, you need their agents and all that kind of stuff, and a script writer. So a ton of people you need for this. So, how do you make a movie that you would want to consume? Well, I'm going to guess that you're going to make an indie film starting off. And when you make an indie film, you are going to have limitations. Point blank, you're going to have limitations and you're going to have setbacks. And you're going to want to be able to use those creatively. So you're going to have constraints, you're going to have difficulties, but instead of having those push against you, you're going to try to use that actually for leverage or momentum to push off of. And the three techniques here are pretty much the same as they always are. Consume movies that are in your genre, so that you with an eye of what sort of things do I like in the scene, that sort of thing. Redirect social media by looking at movie reviews, movie analyses, sort of video essays about movies that you like to see how they pick it apart. And then practice, this one's the hardest because making a short film or a YouTube video isn't as simple as, making a YouTube video could be pretty easy, just your phone and then upload it. But if you want it, independent film level, you're gonna have to put some time into the editing and things like that. So, examples of how I made a movie that I wanted to watch. It's still actually a work in progress, but how I made it on the spot. So, I used reduced actors to increase the oddness and fear. So originally we had 4 actresses to be sort of these I don't know what you would call them, just these random apparitions that appear in this metro. And then we had the main character who's late for his train, and this ominous figure that repeats this one mantra that haunts the main character. And then 2 of the apparition ladies just didn't show up. So we only had 2 of them. So we had to work with that. And
Or were they there?
Or were they there? Exactly. Yeah, if they showed up, we didn't see them, exactly. So we had to retrain the actresses and sort of try to reposition the camera to make use of still having those 2 people, but still making it creepy. So like, the camera will pan, and then the way that the angles are, it looks like one of them just appears from behind them, the main character, or something like that. We use the metro interruptions for breaks and revisions. So filming in a public space is awful. It is terrible. And the trains would come in every 4 minutes. So you would have to plop down the camera, try to get that shot, try to have everybody get their lines down, and try to have no, passers-by in the background or anything, no retakes, in 4 minutes before a deafening train comes by and ruins the whole shot. So that was a good time to just repurpose that as like, hey, actors need breaks. We need to review our things. So every time a train comes by, take a break, get a breather, some water, and we'll look at the footage. And there was the director talking to the main character. Go through some things that we want to do. We use the cruder lighting setups for drawing focus and shots. So that's actually my arm holding my phone and the phone flashlight light is the lighting that we're using for this. And then there's the director, filming that ominous figure we were talking about. And so since we had that harsher lighting, we could do some weird things like in the really close shots, the light comes from under him, so it's like the weird shadows and things of that nature. We originally had a cinematographer that also bailed out on us. So, it was a cool way to use our shrinking resources. And then over here, use shot limitations to make the film feel more claustrophobic. Yes, so as you can see, if you can see here, this shot is really close to the main character's face. That's because there are people waiting on the station, like on the platform over there, that we don't want to have to get them all to sign in. And then also, there's the name of the metro station right there, which, we could get in the shot, but we're not trying to.
Right.
So we have to really bring it in close.
Yeah.
But the final product, it looks really claustrophobic. You can only see the main character's face. You don't know what's on either side of him or behind the camera or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's how we leverage those limitations. So to review, writing a book, try to write new sequences in unique scenarios. Podcast, try to plunge your audience into that experience. A movie, leverage your budget limitations for your creativity. And then three foundational elements here. Consume media that you like in order to figure out what you want to create. Redirect sort of that social media and that downtime towards learning. And again, be careful with that one because it can try and pull you back in. And then definitely practice, making those baby steps. If I want to get to that side of the room, if I'm walking like this, I'm going to get there eventually, even though the steps are small. Mm. So all of this to say, at the end of the day, no one can enjoy media that doesn't exist. So all of this entire conference could be fantastic for learning, but if you don't actually do it, what was the point? So please do it.
Yes.
So that's all I got. My website is down here, but I think that the slides.
Don't get the slides.
Yeah.
We're gonna know.
And then I'll take as many questions as I have time.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Percy Jackson, something on Percy Jackson, tell me what that's about.
Yes, so Percy Jackson, Mom actually got me really into those.
I love Percy Jackson.
Yes. So Percy Jackson is a middle grade sort of fantasy adventure novel series about a young boy who finds out he's like a Greek demigod.
Yes.
And it's like a modern retelling of all the Greek myths and things like that. And he goes on this huge adventure. At first it's New York, but then it's across the United States. And he's fighting hydras and medusas and all that kind of stuff. It was really, really fun. It was a sensation when I was growing up. Everybody was reading it. You couldn't get us to put it down. And that's really inspired me towards a lot of my writing.
So have you written anything on a Percy Jackson line, or that's just what you're inspired by?
Yeah, that's really my inspiration. I don't know that much. All I know about Greek myths comes from Percy Jackson, but I like to use some of those elements in some of my writing. Yeah.
Great, very great.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Phenomenal things.
Yeah, that was incredible what you're doing. We applaud you. I know Nicole's a master podcaster. I've contemplated doing a podcast for at least 2 years. And the thing that kind of, I think, keeps me from going forward is that I know it's going to be a huge time commitment. But I heard you say you don't have to do more than 2 or 3 if you want.
Yeah.
Can you do just a short podcast and get followers?
Yeah. It's kind of, it follows sort of the promotion series of like a self-published book, so it's a little bit easier because you can be like, hey, listen to this podcast. People can listen to a podcast while they're cleaning, while they're driving. You can't read a book while you're driving. So you can just throw one together. People like to buy the fancy mics and things like that, but you don't really need that. You could honestly use your phone. You would want to be in sort of nicer space. People think they need the soundproofing walls, but again, you could just go in your closet or have like a really heavily padded room to go into and record. I know my older twin sisters actually have a podcast.
Oh, really?
And they crank out an episode in like an hour maybe, and they've gained a following from it. You can make it work.
Okay.
So what is the point of a podcast? Like, what's the ultimate
Goal.
gain? Yeah.
Right. So it just depends on the genre. Most podcasts nowadays, it's kind of like a couple of friends discussing a topic and inviting the online community to come in to that topic. So like, almost like how we're doing now, except if this was like other people from around the world were listening and they could type in a chat or something like that. And then your next episode could be replying to that sort of thing. Or it could be kind of like my Fables of 4, where it's pretty much just a book, but fancier. Yeah.
This is incredible. Did you draw your own characters?
Originally I didn't look too good, so I got them commissioned. Yeah. But,
Sir Virgil, that was awesome. So now once we share slides, you can follow him. We're disciples and follow his works, books. And so when we send out an email, there'll be links that you can also access everyone's books as